Genesis chapter 21 presents one of the most profound moments in the biblical narrative. It is a chapter rich in themes of promise, faith, and God's eternal covenant with his people. Through its deep layers, we witness the birth of Isaac, the miracle child promised to Abraham and Sarah, and the complex relationships that unfold as a result of God's divine intervention. The journey through this chapter is a reminder of the promises we too hold in our hearts, a promise of hope, redemption, and fulfillment that, no matter how dire the circumstances seem, is assured to those who remain faithful. As we delve deeper into Genesis 21, we first encounter the miraculous birth of Isaac. Abraham and Sarah, both advanced in age, had long awaited the fulfillment of God's promise. Their impatience, however, led them to make mistakes in their earlier years, most notably when Sarah gave Hagar, her maidservant, to Abraham to bear a child, resulting in the birth of Ishmael. This decision, made out of fear and uncertainty, demonstrated a lack of trust in God's timing. But as we see in Genesis 21, God does not abandon his promises. He fulfills them in his perfect timing. Isaac, born to Abraham and Sarah in their old age, is a living testimony of God's faithfulness. This miraculous birth serves as a reminder that our circumstances do not limit God. His power to fulfill his promises transcends human limitations. Isaac's birth was not just the fulfillment of a promise, it was the beginning of a legacy that would shape the course of history. God's covenant with Abraham was never meant to be a small, isolated promise, it was meant to extend through generations, touching every corner of the earth. Isaac, as the child of promise, was the key to this enduring covenant. The joy and celebration surrounding Isaac's birth were not just because of his arrival, but because his birth marked the beginning of God's greater plan for mankind. The birth of Isaac, against all odds, was not just a personal victory for Abraham and Sarah, but a sign of the greater victory to come. The arrival of Isaac brought with it a shift in the dynamics within the household. Hagar and Ishmael, who had once been central figures in Abraham's life, now found themselves marginalized. This shift was not easy for Abraham, as he had developed a deep affection for Ishmael, his son through Hagar. Yet, God spoke to Abraham, telling him not to be distressed over the departure of Hagar and Ishmael, for God would make a great nation of Ishmael as well. God's words were clear. His plans, though mysterious, were always for good, and even in the moments of pain and separation, his divine purposes were at work. God's promise to Hagar that her son, Ishmael, would become the father of a great nation was a testament to his mercy and his ability to work through every circumstance, even those that seem heartbreaking or unfair. Hagar's journey into the wilderness after being sent away by Abraham was filled with moments of despair. As she wandered, her water ran out, and she placed Ishmael under a bush, expecting to watch her son die. It was in this moment of desperation, when all seemed lost, that God intervened. He spoke to Hagar, offering her hope and showing her the well of water that would sustain her and Ishmael. This moment is a powerful reminder that even in our darkest moments, when we feel abandoned and alone, God is present. His intervention, often unexpected, brings the very hope we need to endure. Hagar's story speaks to all of us who find ourselves in moments of despair. It reminds us that God is always ready to offer a solution, a way out, and a promise of restoration, even when we think we are at the end of our rope. As we reflect on these powerful moments in Genesis 21, it becomes clear that God's plans are not always immediately clear to us. Abraham and Sarah, like many of us, had to learn to trust God's timing. The journey of waiting, especially in times of uncertainty, is one of the most difficult aspects of faith. Yet, Genesis 21 shows us that God's faithfulness is never in doubt, even when it appears that nothing is happening. His timing, though often delayed in our eyes, is always perfect. Abraham and Sarah's struggle was not in vain. The child of promise, Isaac, was born, and with him came the realization that God's promises are worth the wait. The emotions tied to Isaac's birth, joy, relief, and triumph, are shared with us to inspire and encourage us in our own lives. How many times have we waited for a breakthrough, for a promise to be fulfilled, only to see our hopes dashed by disappointment or delay? How many times have we doubted that God would come through for us? The story of Isaac's birth reminds us that in those moments of doubt, we must hold fast to the faith that God will deliver, in his time and in his way. When we remain faithful, even in the face of adversity, we will witness the fulfillment of his promises in ways that exceed our expectations. Furthermore, the chapter is a poignant reminder of the power of God's covenant. When God made his covenant with Abraham, he did not just promise him blessings for himself and his descendants, he promised blessings for the world. The covenant was not just about one man's lineage, it was about the unfolding of God's great plan for humanity. Through Isaac's birth, this plan continued to unfold, and though it may have seemed like a small, personal event in the life of Abraham, it had eternal significance. In our own lives, we often struggle to understand the larger implications of the choices we make and the promises we hold. However, Genesis 21 encourages us to trust that our lives are part of a bigger, divine narrative. Our actions, our faith, and our struggles are woven into a tapestry that has eternal significance. Every step we take in faith, no matter how small it may seem, is part of God's grand design. The story of Isaac's birth also calls us to reflect on the relationships in our lives. The dynamic between Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, and their respective children is complex and fraught with tension. Yet, it is in this complexity that God's grace shines through. While we may not fully understand why certain relationships in our lives are marked by difficulty or separation, we can take solace in knowing that God is at work in every situation. He is not just working in our moments of joy, He is also working in our moments of pain and separation. Every twist and turn, every challenge we face, is part of a larger story of redemption. As we look at the life of Isaac, we are reminded of the incredible significance of the legacy we leave. Isaac's life was not just about his immediate family, it was about the legacy that would stretch across generations, shaping the destiny of nations. The promises God made to Abraham were not for his generation alone but were intended to ripple through time, touching lives far beyond what he could see. This serves as a reminder that our actions, our faith, and our choices have lasting consequences. The legacy we build today will impact future generations in ways we may never fully understand. As we conclude our reflection on Genesis 21, let us remember that God's promises are true. His faithfulness, His mercy, and His love are unwavering, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. The birth of Isaac serves as a beacon of hope, showing us that God's timing is perfect, His plans are unshakable, and His covenant endures forever. When we face moments of doubt, despair, or uncertainty, we can take comfort in knowing that the same God who fulfilled His promise to Abraham and Sarah is the God who will fulfill His promises to us. This chapter, with its deep lessons of faith, trust, and divine intervention, calls us to look forward with hope and to embrace the promises of God with urgency. The story of Isaac's birth and the journey of Abraham and Sarah is not just an ancient narrative, it is a story that speaks to us today, urging us to hold on to God's promises, no matter the obstacles we face. If you find yourself inspired by the truth revealed in this chapter, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, Shining Truths. Let us continue to explore together the deep, life-changing lessons that the Bible has to offer. By subscribing, you'll ensure that you don't miss out on future insights and reflections that can empower your journey of faith. Stay encouraged, stay inspired, and let the truth of God's Word guide you every day.